Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Unfiltered Generations. I'm Channing Curtis.
And I'm Dr. Dee Dee Curtis.
And today, once again, we have a lot to talk about. We have to talk about all of this that has been coming out with this new audio of President Joe Biden just showing how much his cognitive decline really was in those last couple of years in the White House. But before we get to that, we have to talk about a few other lighter things as well. One thing, of course, it's the NBA playoffs right now. And Mom, you and I are both really big NBA fans. I just wanted to get your take. What do you think about the NBA playoffs so far?
You know, since they did all of this to my Luca, I just cannot be that concerned about the NBA or their playoffs, because had they left my Luca in Dallas, Dallas would have been in the playoffs and somebody else would not have been. And so who that somebody else would have been, I'm not going to say. I really don't know. But the only thing I do say is that I am kind of excited about the teams that's left in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals. I'm excited to watch Oklahoma City play. Who are they playing? The Timberwolves. I think that will be a good series.
Yeah.
I'm also excited to see the Knicks, although you know how I feel about the Knicks. Yeah. I'm excited to see them play Rick Carlisle because I do like Brunson. And so I think that's got to be kind of good. And I normally don't pull for the Knicks, but I'm going to be kind of ambivalent about that. I will pull for Brunson, but then part of me will also pull for Rick Carlisle. So I'm kind of excited.
I'm just excited to see some different teams in there this year. I'm glad to see kind of like a changing of the guard and stop seeing like the same 4 or 5 teams in the mix. Although I will firmly forever believe that if the Mavericks had left Luka alone, the Mavericks would have won this year. There's no doubt in my mind they would have been the best team by far. Luka, Kyrie, Clay on that court, no question. Nobody could have taken them. Nobody in this playoff series could have.
No, and if they had left Luka there with Kyrie and Gafford and Lively and PJ, and then once they added Najee, and if they had left Grimes, none of the teams that I've seen so far do I think could have beat that team. I think the NBA did a major disservice to their fans by moving Luka when they did. I think that was just tragic. It was
Actually, I was reading a headline today on Instagram from D Magazine. If you're not in the Dallas area, D Magazine is a huge magazine publication out in the Dallas area. And they were talking about how the Luka trade has actually impacted some of the restaurants down there in Victory Plaza around where the Mavericks play, down by the American Airlines Center. And they were talking about how just drastically business has dropped for all of those restaurants, those bars, all of the different restaurants and everything that serve that area. And I can definitely understand it, because when the Mavericks, when they traded Luka, you don't really have a reason to go down there anymore. It just kind of took the heart out of the whole fandom.
Well, you know, I've watched the Mavericks now for over 20 years. I was a great Dirk fan. I was JJ Barea, even Jason Kidd, all of them. And they don't understand that this is something I think that happened with a new owner and even a new general manager. They don't understand fandom. They didn't understand. Luka was my joy. I can watch the Mavericks, and I watched the Mavericks when Luka didn't play. But I enjoyed watching Luka because he's so special. And that's the one thing. And I know now they said, well, you're going to get Cooper Flag. I was like, you know, it's just like a parent. They said, well, you know, if you take away one child, then you still have another child. Like they say, what is it that they call in the royal families? You have the
heir and the spare.
The heir and the spare. The spare still is not the heir. And that's the way I look at it. And I'm sorry, it's nothing to say about it. I don't really know anything about Cooper Flag. But
now listen.
Now, I know he's good, I've heard, but just think about it. With Luka, we raised him over years. Luka didn't start off the way he was this time last year. That's not the person that we got at 18. And I'm sure with Cooper, I might feel differently 5 years from now, but it will not change the fact that I think that the NBA, and I'm going to say the NBA, because you know that I feel that they were extremely involved in it. I don't care what they say. I think the NBA made a huge error in moving Luka when they did. Now, if they had
Mhm.
moved him 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when this contract was over, that's a different thing. But to
Mhm.
move him in what was probably his first championship year, I think was, they will find out, was a huge business mistake, because what
Oh
they
yeah.
did, not only did they ruin the Mavericks, but the Lakers aren't there either. So they did all of that for nothing. Anyway,
Exactly. Nothing and no one will ever convince me that the
no, me
NBA
either.
didn't have a hand in this because it was just too convenient. All of a sudden, you do this Luka trade. It doesn't benefit either team this year. And then, just kind of as the payoff for the Mavericks, they get the number one overall pick all of a sudden when they had a 1.8% chance. Give me a break.
Yeah, my business background is too great to believe that businesses do things by happenstance. No,
Yeah.
they plan and plot everything. So no, I'm
No.
smart.
No, definitely not. Now, I'll say Cooper Flag is good. He's very good. And if the Mavericks actually end up drafting him and keeping him for a long time, he will be very beneficial to the team. But just like everybody else, it's going to take years. Luca, if they had left him alone, probably would have won this year. And that's the
Right,
difference.
right. Yeah. And maybe for the next few years, he probably would have won two or three in the
Hmm.
next few years. But as it stands, I mean, the Mavericks, as they are, they were a really good, I mean, a great team with
Yeah.
Luka. And then, people, I keep saying that Kyrie probably wouldn't have gotten injured. I'm not a doctor, but Kyrie wouldn't have had to play 40 minutes. He didn't play 40 minutes a game when Luka was there. And so
Absolutely.
therefore, he probably would not have sustained that level of injury, shall I? And like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not pretending. I'm not a physical doctor. I'm not pretending to be. But anyway, I think the NBA, and I'm going to go on record for saying that I think they were very. I think they made a mistake. It was a huge business mistake, and one that they will see going into the future.
Well, now, Mom, I have also been following the Diddy trial, and I know you haven't been following it as much, but I know you're on social media a lot. Don't act like that you're not. Like you're not the social media guru
Yeah,
out of the
right.
two of us. So I need to know though what your thoughts have been because I know you've seen some of my recaps though, so you've seen some of the shocking moments that have happened in the trial so far.
To me, the thing that gets me the most is how it mirrors how closely related it is to Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein, and that people have to realize that we have these industries that our kids, we allow our kids to pay so much attention to these industries, and these industries are so bad. The one thing that I get about it more than anything is how did this person, that is obviously such a bad person, get to not only make it to that level of success? How did he stay there? And how did everybody allow him to mistreat people to that level And me being a strong advocate for women who were abused, the things that I saw him do and that I have heard, and that I even heard Cassie say that he did to her, I'm like, where was the world when this man was doing this?
Hmm.
Where was Me Too? Where was the National Organization for Women? Where was I? Where were people that should have been there supporting these women, and not just women, because it appears as though he mistreated men more than women. I mean, the fact that you have these industries that our children pay so much attention to, and those industries are so sinister. That's the part
Hmm.
that gets me. Now, I'm sure you can comment more on the personalities than I can. I'm commenting on the industry itself, the music industry. How did it let that person prey on young people? And when I say young people, I don't even know if this has been brought up yet, because you told me that they haven't really talked about people, but everybody knows, we know what they said he did to Justin Bieber. We know what they said that happened with Usher. We
Hmm.
know things on very young people. And I'm just like, how are we allowing those types of industries to thrive? And I don't mean just survive. They are thriving. And how did he get there? That's my question.
No, and that's a very interesting point. And I think one of the things that keeps getting missed and that isn't being really brought up, especially like what people talk about it on social media, is that that's not even really a part of this case. It's like really what they're getting him on is racketeering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's all racketeering, which lets you know too that there has to be so much evidence on him for you to even bring a racketeering charge against somebody.
True.
There has to be a lot. And even like I read the original indictment when it came back came out back in August, September of last year, there was so much evidence presented. They had been working on this case for over a decade and pulling evidence together on him. And that lets you know right then and there, I was like, oof. As soon as when they went and started searching all of his different homes, when they went to his plane, when they did all of these different things and started searching all of his different properties, that let you know right then and there that, oh, they had a really good case. And I feel like Cassie is kind of setting the tone for the case, but I don't think she is necessarily the case.
And it's interesting that you said that's what they went after him on, is racketeering more so than anything else. And I don't know, what about the trafficking? I had heard originally that had said they were going to do something with him about trafficking.
So there is a trafficking. So he has three charges. There's one count of racketeering conspiracy, two counts of transportation, and two counts of trafficking.
It's still just interesting to me that people get to that level and they stay there. And I mean, and I've read other entertainers, which I won't bring up now, but I've read so many other entertainers that are so heavily involved in what he's doing and how successful they are. And wait, I want to say this. It makes you really question all of it, because now they're even tying the awards, all of the award ceremonies, and it was any of it real? I'm like, okay, so this entire industry that's based on these people, it makes you question all of the award ceremonies that they have, because they said if you're not in that, if you're not one of the a part of their inner circle, then you don't win awards as well. So now I question all of it, and I don't know how long. You don't even know how far back it goes. I mean, this man is not young. How old is he?
Did he? He's what, 50
something? Yeah, he's 50 something. That means it goes way back. And then what really gets me is the other people that are now, most of I think are deceased now, that were tied to it, that they said were there before he was. It just really makes you question it. It makes people, give it a second thought before you let your children get in that industry, and that they are influenced by that industry at all. I mean,
absolutely.
And I'm saying that from just a person and a parent and a Christian and all that kind of thing, all those kinds of things. It's just it seems like a very deep. I don't know. We have to also take some responsibility in being culpable in it. These people that are bad, and you keep hearing for years that these people that do all of these rituals, or they do all of this, but that's okay. I still like that song. I'm like, you realize that you're supporting an industry that's sinister. So that's something.
That's true. That's true. I guess it's just kind of like that argument. Then you decide, then how far do you take it? At what point do you say that these allegations are true? Do you decide the allegations are true?
Well, this is the way I look at it. Allegations become true when you hear it over and over and over. Then you could almost count on it. It's like they said, old people used to say, if you heard a girl is pregnant, if you hear a couple of people say it at church, it's normally true. If you hear one person say it, then maybe not. If all of the people on the usher board say it, it's normally true.
That is true. All right, so let's get to our big topic, of course, like our big political topic, because man, it's been like a crazy couple of days with all of this latest audio. So this audio just dropped from Axios that is actually of a transcript that came out, over a year and a half ago, of an interview with then President Biden and Robert Hur, who was interviewing Biden at the time regarding classified documents that he had taken from the White House when he was vice president.
Right.
And it was during this whole scandal that they were having, when they were trying to say that Biden and Donald Trump were taking all of these classified documents. And at the time when the transcripts came out, they said that Biden, they said that he stumbled over a few things, that he had forgotten a few things, but they also pinned it and made it seem like Robert Hur was really bullying an old man, and that he was really the one that was almost manipulating the situation. And a lot of questions were being asked, and Democrats really came down hard on him, and even just people in general came down really hard on him. Well,
that's what Democrats do.
Exactly. Well, a couple of days ago, Axios came out and somehow found the actual audio of the interview, and they released it to the public. And I'm going to play some of it for you guys. because yeah, you'll be able to hear it for yourself, and you can hear whether or not you think this is actually bullying, because I heard it, and I personally, I read the transcript when it came out. I knew it wasn't bullying then, but hearing the transcript, hearing it played back, you know for a fact it's not.
And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I may run for office again. If I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? May 30th,
2018.
was it 2015 he died?
2015.
I think it's 2015.
Or, yeah, I'm not sure the months are, but I think it was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in. Then,
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. And in 2017, Bo had passed.
Well, the thing about it, everybody knows I'm a constitutional conservative, so I'm always going to question especially what Democrats do. That's the way they operate. In order to take any kind of emphasis off of them, they're going to always blame the other person. And so what happened when Robert Erb did this interview, instead of them saying, oh my goodness, Joe Biden has some mental issues, let's blame the messenger. Robert Erb is the person that's doing the interview. Blame the person that's doing the interview instead of the person that's being interviewed. Mm-hmm. That's just the way they do it. And so I don't give them any credence. I refuse to give them any credence to Robert Erb badgering Joe Biden, because the entire media badgers Donald Trump. And that's what they do. And they all get applauded. They have whole shows, and that's what the whole show, shows like The View, that's what they're for. They badger Donald Trump. And so I'm not going to give any credence to that. As a matter of fact, I don't even discussing whether Joe Biden was badgered or anything or mistreated by Robert. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to even give it any credence, but I did find out something that you may be interested in. Tom Hidden from Judicial Watch had filed a Freedom of Information Act with the Trump administration back in, I think, like on February 12th, in order to get the audio from that interview. He had done that, and then the court had given them until February 19th to decide on what to do. So Axios might have come up with it, but it was Judicial Watch that filed the Freedom of Information Act to get that information. And, Tom Fenton was saying, don't send us, and this is just so that the public can know. When they send out a transcript, and he said even at that time, it was obvious that the transcript had been manipulated. They did not even argue that the transcript had been manipulated. And so Tom Fenton is a great attorney. He says, don't send me that. That's nothing. And so just so the public can know, when someone just sends you a transcript or they send you the visual and you don't know what's being said, that's nothing. And so therefore it was just released. And that's a great thing that he forced that. He was like, don't play with me like that.
No. Mm-mm. Absolutely not. And like several media outlets had filed Freedom of Information Act requests at the time too. Had been long fighting the federal government on those Freedom of Information Act requests, because one thing that people don't know is that they're not necessarily beholden to those Freedom of Information Act requests. You're supposed to be, but they don't ever follow their own rules ever.
I know.
It's just kind of the nature of doing business with them. But in case anybody does not know, with this new audio that's been released, it just further proves the fact that more and more people were aware of just how far President Biden's cognitive decline really was, and at what point people really knew that he was really stumbling and fumbling along in that presidency, and that there was really a concerted effort among White House staffers, among the Democratic Party, and not just the Democratic Party, because, well, House Speaker Mike Johnson has an interview that he did in January where he talks about when he won the House Speaker, he tried to meet with President Biden several times, and that he couldn't, and that there were all these gatekeepers on the White House staff that kept him from meeting with Biden, from talking to Biden or anything like that. And when he finally got a chance to meet with Biden, there was some legislation that he had questions about. And Biden said that he wasn't the one who signed this legislation, that he had no idea anything that he was talking about.
Right, he did.
And then he didn't bring that message up to anybody. As House Speaker, he didn't bring that to the media. He didn't bring that to anybody in the Republican Party, the Democrat Party. He waited until Donald Trump was already president. Well, actually, at that point, I think when he gave this interview, it was right before the inauguration. So the end of Biden's term.
Right. And he should have brought it up. If that were reversed, you can bet you that Nancy Pelosi would have creamed Donald Trump had he gotten that same level of information. Mike Johnson, again, being Mike Johnson, which, my opinion is very passive instead of being aggressive, especially on something that important. He did also hide it, but, you have to look at the entire Democrat Party hid it until it became where they thought it was going to be not to their advantageous for them. And then they were like, okay, Joe, you got to go. Once they found out that they didn't think that he could beat Donald Trump, once he gave that debate with Donald Trump, then they came out and said, okay, this person that we see cannot beat President Trump, so we need to get rid of him. And then what was it? It was Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, so, a couple of other high-level Democrats that then came out and said, you have to drop out of the race, which was extremely unusual. And then they just put Kamala in there. They didn't go through any of their procedures or processes. They just put Kamala. And wait a minute. This is the kicker. When they decided after the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and they decided that Joe Biden could not beat Donald Trump, and then Nancy Pelosi asked for him to be replaced, and she tried to force him off the ticket, they threw a curve, and I say it's the Biden family, threw a curve to the Democrat Party, and Joe Biden released a statement on X that he was supporting, that he was endorsing Kamala Harris as the president. And I don't think this is personally, I don't believe that was anywhere in their plans. I think, but because he endorsed her and he did it publicly and put it on X, so that the whole world can see it, then they didn't have any other choice but to go with her. That is just my take. I think that they did that because they realized that the Democrat Party was going to turn against Joe Biden. And Joe Biden's family said, okay, since you're going to get us, this is our way of getting you back.
I can see that. But to be fair, she probably should have been president before then. You know?
A whole nother conversation. You're absolutely right.
I mean, like, if he was as bad as everybody is saying that he was, if he was not really able to function, if he was not the one who was really leading our government, then she really should have been president, and she really should have been the one running against Donald Trump from the get-go.
You're absolutely right. And now, okay, the interview that Robert Hur had, I believe, was October 8th of 2023. Okay, so you're going back there a whole year before the election. If you look at his cognitive abilities, at that moment, they probably should have used the 25th Amendment and made Kamala the president of the United States. The 25th Amendment, Section 4, states that if they have determined that he cannot uphold his duties as president of the United States, then the vice president is supposed to take over. And I believe that the Democrat Party cheated her out of being the first woman president. She should have been the first woman president. They should have done that in October. And I believe the reason that they did not do it is, first of all, they didn't think she could beat Donald Trump. They thought that they could run Joe Biden and he could beat Donald Trump, but they did not believe Kamala. And the only reason that they stood behind him is because of what the Biden family did when they endorsed her for president. Even if she didn't beat Donald Trump, at least she could have been the first the first woman president of the United States. So all of these women's groups that were out there pulling for her, and everybody saying she didn't win. I just heard somebody say she didn't win because she was a woman and all this. All these people that are saying this, blame the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is the reason that she was not the first woman president. Now, would I have wanted her to be? No. I'm gonna really be honest. I think there are other people that I think were better qualified for that position. But I still have to defend her right constitutionally for being the first woman president of the United States.
I still think she would have been better than what we had with Joe at that point.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. Now, I'm going to throw something else in there. I think the reason that they did not make her president is whomever was actually acting as president, which we will find out should lead to several long-term investigations, whomever was acting as president felt like they couldn't control her. I think they felt like they could run it better, having him over there and them not having to answer to anything from Joe Biden. But Kamala Harris, had they made her president, they might have had to answer. She might have all of a sudden, they made her president and she might have said, wait a minute,
right?
I am the president of the United States. You did not ask me, and no, I'm not signing that. That's totally different from having a Joe Biden that wouldn't have even known that they asked him. So I'm thinking that Kamala Harris was betrayed by her own party, because even looking at those tapes from October of 2023, when you look at those tapes and just think about it, it would have even made her campaign better. Because she would have at that time been the incumbent president. She would have gotten the benefit of being the incumbent president.
For sure.
And so whomever in the Democrat Party, Democrats, I know they're having some issues right now, some internal issues trying to determine who they are. The people that supported Kamala Harris should be upset about the people who overlooked her for president of the United States. And that's something that should come out when they have all of these hearings to find out who were the people. And I'm not going to assume, I really have no idea who the real people were.
Well, the Wall Street Journal told a lot of them. The Wall Street Journal wrote an entire article about this back in January, and they named names of a lot of people. They were saying which staffers, they were saying who in the Democratic Party, they were naming names. And it was just like, everybody ignored it. Everybody saw the article and was like, keep going.
Well, it's like you were even talking about Freedom of Information Act. We have gotten to a point where we have a culture now of ignoring the laws. And when I say we, I don't mean us worker bees. I mean the people that are supposed to uphold the law. They totally ignore laws. It's like I heard one of the congressmen said, what about Constitution? We don't pay attention to the Constitution, which I hate to hear them say that, but it is absolutely true. They don't pay attention to the Constitution. They use it if it benefits them. If it doesn't benefit them, they will totally ignore the Constitution. And that's something, that's a big issue that we have right now. But I hope in upcoming investigations that they find out from October 8th of 2023. And I say that because if that video was made on October 8th of 2023, you have to try to think, so when did the decline happen? That decline did not happen that day. They didn't say he had a stroke or something that day. No. That it was not an event that happened that day. How long does it take for you to get to that level of decline? And why wasn't it? And Kamala Harris's people, and I say this because they're always the people, and people always ask me, why do you always mess with Democrats? I say, because Democrats always mess with everybody else. They are always the ones, they're the bullies. And they're the bullies that hit everybody and then turn around and say somebody hit them. And so now it's time for everybody to hit them and say, why did you ignore this woman that should have been the legal president at that time? And I'm going to say this again. I am not questioning her abilities. I am not saying one thing about me supporting her. I'm not saying that she would have been good, because I really probably, but she couldn't have been any worse. That's all I can say. She couldn't have been any worse than us not having a president that was coherent, a president that knew what was going on in the country. She could not have been any worse. And I'm thinking that might have been why they ignored her. They might have been afraid that all of a sudden she was going to wake up and say, look, wait a minute. I'm the president. You get out of my office. You know, and I think that's it. And I think now all of these people that were thrown all these race cards and have played this for the last 4 or 5 years, and that sat there and said everybody didn't vote for her because she was a woman or a woman of color. It's time for you to use that and use it correctly. Because apparently whomever made the decision decided that this woman of color did not deserve to be president of the United States. And it was against our Constitution.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us with this edition of Unfiltered Generations. I'm Channing Curtis.
And I'm Dr. Dee Dee Curtis.
And we'll see you next time. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. You text me asking me what you should eat for dinner. I was like, I don't know. I'm not the adult here.
I'm so stressed. And the reason I'm stressed because it's supposed to rain. And so I keep saying, okay, I'm not going out. But then I'm like, but I'm starving. I need to go get me something to eat. But anyway.
Do you want me to DoorDash you some food?
I look